juice. That was just the meth making you crazy, dog.
Both of you, get back in the closet. You deserve a fucking ass whooping. All of you, get back in the closet. Go fuck yourself.
How much does it cost for fascism? How much do the taxpayers have to pay for a fascist country?
They're evil. They are actively doing evil. So treat them like the evil that they are.
The right to exist argument has been used now to the point where what it's going to mean is that the Israel you're talking about will include the annexed and illegally occupied West Bank. It's very interesting, the Israeli government has never said where it thinks the borders of Israel really ought to be and what it would settle for. I think it would be an immense help if it tells us where it thinks Israel's boundaries should be. Every other country does do that.
It's time to stop pretending otherwise. It's time to be ruthless and time to afford them the same amount of grace that they give to their Palestinian victims, because they are only going to get more and more ruthless with their victims if you don't.
Whoa, what's going on? It is super dark in here. Let me fix that. Let's start with headlines, then go into more specific stories. But mainly let me fix this lighting. Good lord.
Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The United Nations has formally declared a famine in the Gaza Strip, where more than 500,000 Palestinians face widespread starvation, destitution, and preventable death. The declaration follows 22 months of near constant Israeli bombardment, along with the repeated forced displacement of Palestinians, severe restrictions on access to food, water, and medicine, and the collapse of health, sanitation, and market systems. The UN's top humanitarian official, Tom Fletcher, spoke from Geneva earlier today.
It is a famine in 2025. A 21st century famine, watched over by drones and the most advanced military technology in history. It is a famine openly promoted by some Israeli leaders as a weapon of war. It is a famine on all of our watch. Everyone owns this. The Gaza famine is the world's famine.
On Thursday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he would restart indirect negotiations with Hamas aimed at returning the remaining Israeli hostages held in Gaza. But Netanyahu said he would not halt Israel's military campaign to seize Gaza City while forcibly displacing its nearly 1 million inhabitants. Israel's unrelenting attacks continued overnight, with at least 25 Palestinians killed since the early hours of Friday. Among the dead, at least 12 civilians killed when Israel bombed a school sheltering displaced families in Gaza City's Sheikh Radwan neighborhood. In Deir al-Balah, 23-year-old Saja Hamad is recovering from injuries after her dramatic rescue from the rubble of her home following an Israeli airstrike on the Nuseirat refugee camp.
Yeah, this made mainstream news. I mean, how can you ignore this? This young woman buried under rubble, metal, twisted rebar, and dirt.
I didn't feel anything. I was just sleeping in the other room, and suddenly I heard nothing. I just found myself under the rubble. Everything fell onto my face. I was screaming, calling for my family. I thought they were dead.
I hadn't even considered the smothering silence of being buried alive. She said I didn't hear anything.
Suddenly, I heard nothing.
We have so much to get to, but I have to hear this again.
I didn't feel anything. I I was just sleeping in the other room, and suddenly I heard nothing. I just found myself under the rubble. Everything fell onto my face. I was screaming, calling for my family. I thought they were dead. I did not expect they would still be alive. I thought I would end up alone.
An internal Israeli intelligence database indicates at least 83% of Palestinians killed in Israel's assault on Gaza were civilians. That's according to a joint investigation by The Guardian and the Israeli news sites Local Call and 972 magazine. They report the proportion of civilians slaughtered by Israel has few parallels in modern warfare. California Governor Gavin Newsom signed legislation Thursday approving a special election in November, asking voters whether to waive an independent redistricting process to approve a new partisan congressional map favoring Democrats. Newsom's signature came just hours after lawmakers in Sacramento approved the measures. State Assembly Speaker, Democrat Robert Rivas, called the proposed map a direct response to a new congressional map approved by Texas's Republican-controlled House this week at the behest of President Trump that's designed to flip 5 House seats in the 2026 midterm elections.
We will not let our political system be hijacked by authoritarianism. And today we give every Californian the power to say no to Donald Trump's power grab, and yes, to our people, to our state, and to our democracy.
Protests continue in Washington, D.C.
To form an argument against Trump that is an appeal to democracy is not seeing why Trump got elected in the first place. What fucking democracy are you appealing to when arguing against Trump? Trump is a creation of the late-stage capitalist swill, the swamp. And he's the swamp creature that's emerged from it. And Trump is just a symptom of the problem of late-stage capitalism. Because more creatures like him will come out of the swamp if we don't address the true issue. Which is that capitalism, you know, it worked to pull people out of poverty, but that's it. We now have a somewhat stable capitalist system. In order to transition, we're ready to transition into a socialist state. But Trump is is just mounted on that pale horse of death, you know? And the conditions of capitalism is what put him there. Our fake democracy is what put him there.
Opposing President Trump's federal takeover and military occupation of the Capitol. On Thursday, Trump paid a visit to hundreds of National Guard troops and federal law enforcement agents deployed to the district, delivering pizza and hamburgers to them and praising their crackdown, which the White House says has netted some 600 arrests since early August. Hundreds of immigrants have also been arrested in Washington, D.C. in recent days as Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents are now accompanying police officers on traffic stops, targeting delivery workers on mopeds. ICE agents are reportedly using driver's license, registration, and insurance information to determine the immigration status of people stopped by police. Over 200
With the medical records thing, are they going to be yanking people out of hospitals after this?
Immigrants have been arrested since Trump's federal takeover of D.C., according to the White House. The shift violates D.C.'s sanctuary policies, which restrict collaboration between local police and federal immigration agencies. This comes as the Pentagon's recruiting civilian employees to join Trump's crackdown on immigrants, asking them to voluntarily enlist to aid in immigration raids. A federal judge in Miami has ordered the Trump administration to stop transferring immigrants to the remote, poorly constructed immigration jail on an airfield in the Florida Everglades swamp, dubbed by Republicans Alligator Alcatraz. Thursday's ruling finds Florida and the federal government acted illegally.
I heard somebody say, it was like someone in a progressive space, like, I understand joining ICE for the money. Like the signing bonus? Like you're Mr. Mackey just trying to make your nut? Like, it was Blooms, the South Park guy, literally saying like, now I would understand. He just analyzes South Park episodes or does like a book report on each episode. And he's like, I would understand why you would want to join ICE, but for the money, I think what the show is trying to do is, you know, show empathy towards the people who are just trying to make a living. I'm like, no. You missed the point. Like, you are showing Mr. Mackey, one of the most cowardly, oh geez, like, just impotent characters ever joining ICE. Even though he's incredibly qualified to do other things. I'm just trying to make my nut. Refuse. I would rather live in squalor than arrest my neighbors with no due process like this. Kidnap innocent people. I just did it for the money is going to be the new, I'm just following orders. Tell me how it's different. Comment below how you think it's different.
By omitting an environmental review before building and opening Alligator Alcatraz. Trump officials will now have to dismantle much of the detention camp to remove, quote, all generators, gas, sewage, and other waste and waste receptacles that were installed due to environmental violations. This has raised concerns of how the jail could remain operational with hundreds of immigrants still inside. The decision came as part of a federal lawsuit filed by environmentalists and the Mukusuk tribe. Trump's State Department's reviewing the records of more than 55 million immigrants who hold valid U.S. visas, threatening to revoke protections if any violations are found deemed deportable by the Trump administration. This includes what Trump officials declare engaging in any form of quote-unquote terrorist activity. Earlier this week, the Trump administration said it would expand its rigorous screening and vetting of social media posts of immigrant visa applicants to search for so-called anti-American views and activity. References to anti-Americanism can be found in the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1952, which at the time of its enactment primarily focused on targeting suspected communists. Russia's foreign ministry said Thursday a European proposal to deploy troops in a future post-war Ukraine would amount to foreign intervention and is therefore unacceptable to Moscow. The statement casts further doubt on President Trump's bid to bring Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Russian President Vladimir Putin together for peace talks. On Thursday, Zelensky said Russia had already telegraphed its intentions to continue its war in Ukraine through large-scale drone and missile strikes, including a cruise missile attack on a U.S.-owned electronics factory in western Ukraine Thursday that left 15 people injured.
Росіяни точно знали, куди б'ють.
The Russians knew perfectly well where they were aiming. It was a missile strike. We believe it was a deliberate strike precisely on American property here in Ukraine. A very telling strike, like this whole massive attack, at the very time when the world waits for a clear answer from the Russians, an answer regarding negotiations to end the war.
Police in Italy say they've arrested a Ukrainian man suspected of coordinating the sabotage of 3 Nord Stream gas pipelines in 2022. The undersea explosions caused severe damage to infrastructure built to carry natural gas from Russia to Western Europe. The United States initially blamed the sabotage on Russia. German federal prosecutors have identified the suspect only as 49-year-old Serhiy K. He's allegedly part of a small team of Ukrainians who use a rented yacht, satellite navigation, sonar, and seabed maps to plant timer-controlled explosives on pipelines on the bottom of the Baltic Sea. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled Thursday the Trump administration can proceed with plans to cancel nearly $800 million in National Institutes of Health research grants tied to diversity, equity, and inclusion. The court's narrow 5-4 ruling overturns a lower court order that blocked the Trump administration's abrupt cancellation of some 1,700 grants focused on heart disease, HIV/AIDS, Alzheimer's, substance abuse, and mental health. The New York Times reports the Trump administration is ignoring a congressional directive to fully fund PEPFAR, an HIV/AIDS treatment and prevention program credited with saving 26 million lives since President George W. Bush signed it into law in 2003. The Times reports the Office of Management and Budget, led by Russell Vought, has apportioned less than half of the $6 billion appropriated by Congress to PEPFAR for this fiscal year. Meanwhile, a union representing federal workers said Thursday the Trump administration's permanently fired 600 workers at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, adding to mass layoffs proposed by Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy, Jr. The Department of Education's canceled a grant providing millions of dollars for a California sex education program after educators refused to remove all references to gender identity, trans, and non-binary people from its curriculum. The program seeks to help prevent unwanted childhood pregnancies and sexually transmitted infections. Separately, the Education Department this week quietly rescinded guidance directing schools to accommodate students learning English as a second language. This follows President Trump's executive order seeking to establish English as the official language of the United States. A federal judge ruled Thursday Trump's former personal attorney, Alina Habba, has been unlawfully serving as the U.S. Attorney for the District of New Jersey. Habba had been serving as interim U.S. Attorney until her appointment expired in July. After a panel of judges selected veteran New Jersey prosecutor Desiree Grace to replace her, Trump's Justice Department promptly fired Grace and reinstalled Habba as her replacement. A New York appeals court has voided nearly $500 million civil fraud judgment against Donald Trump, 2 of his sons, and the Trump Organization. Thursday's split decision by a panel of 5 New York appellate judges ruled the financial penalty to be an excessive fine that violates the 8th Amendment. But the court did uphold part of the judgment that temporarily restricts Donald Trump and his sons Eric and Donald Jr. from doing business in New York. State Attorney General Letitia James promised an appeal, adding in a statement, quote, "It should not be lost to history. Yet another court has ruled that the president violated the law and that our case has merit," she said. New York City Mayor Eric Adams is facing fresh scrutiny after one of his former advisors attempted to pay off a reporter from the city following a campaign event Wednesday. Winnie Greco handed reporter Katie Honan a stack of cash in a red envelope stuffed inside an open bag of potato chips. The envelope contained at least one $100 bill and several 20s. Greco resigned last year while under FBI investigation and had been volunteering in Adams' re-election campaign for mayor. Her attorney claimed the attempted bribe was a Chinese cultural gesture in which money is used to express gratitude. The newspaper The City immediately reported the incident to authorities. Another one of Adams' longtime allies...
That is so xenophobic, dude. No. Like, cultural gestures aren't done in secret like that. And even my American ass knows that, you know, the gift-giving culture in Asia is, you know, something that you do publicly in many different occasions. no matter how small it is, even if it's like a small amount of money, they wouldn't degrade it by hiding it inside of trash. Horseshit.
Martin has been indicted on a second wave of bribery charges, accused of accepting over $75,000 in bribes in a scheme ranging from 2022 to 24, while she served as chief advisor to Adams. Last year, Lewis Martin and her son were also indicted on separate charges of bribery, money laundering, and conspiracy. And in breaking news, federal agents
It's a dumb lie.
raided the Maryland home of John Bolton, who served as national security advisor during Trump's first term, before resigning and becoming an outspoken critic of the president. Citing an unnamed source, the Associated Press reported the search as part of an investigation
This was
involving
crazy.
the handling of classified documents. Ahead of this morning's raid, FBI
Sure it is.
Director Kash Patel posted a cryptic message on the social media site X, writing, quote, "No one is above the law. FBI agents on mission."
The fuck was that close-up?
Unquote. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Earlier this week, the top State Department press officer on Israeli-Palestinian affairs, Shahed Qureshi, was fired from his position without explanation. The firing comes after several internal debates at the State Department regarding how to characterize U.S. positions on Israel's war in Gaza, according to internal State Department records reviewed by the Washington Post. In the most recent
You mean calling it a genocide?
Qureshi had drafted a line for a press release in response to the controversial Israeli plan to relocate hundreds of thousands of Palestinians from the Gaza Strip. The proposed line read, quote, "We do not support forced displacement of Palestinians in Gaza," unquote. Despite similar language being used by both President Trump and Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff earlier this year, it was struck from the statement by State Department leadership. Another recent dispute followed the targeted killing of the well-known Palestinian journalist Anas al-Sharif of Al Jazeera and 5 other journalists in a press tent in Gaza. Qureshi recommended a line that said, quote, "We mourn the loss of journalists and express condolences to their families," unquote. That line was also rejected. According to the Washington Post, a key figure in the internal disputes was David Milstein, a top advisor to the U.S. ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. In one direct disagreement, Milstein had pushed for the State Department to refer to the West Bank as Judea and Samaria, a biblical name for the area that's widely used within Israel. But West Bank is the internationally recognized name in the previously approved State Department language. Qureshi managed to cut the line. We go now to Washington, D.C., where we're joined by Shahed Qureshi in his first broadcast interview. Welcome to Democracy Now! Explain what took place, what you were told, and
Wow, we got an exclusive interview here.
to your firing.
Thanks, Amy. I have been a press officer at the State Department since September. I've been covering Israeli-Palestinian affairs since January. I had a good relationship with the civil servants there. I had a good relationship with even the political appointees there. You don't get this role on a whim. However, I believe that basic U.S. interests and human decency were important in my role. And last week, I think 3 events from Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday built up to aggravate the radical ideologues at the State Department and in Embassy Jerusalem to lead to my firing. Sunday was the terrible killing and murder of Anas and his colleagues. And Monday was the line about forced displacement, essentially ethnic cleansing. And Tuesday, I cut the line on regarding Judea and Samaria. These built up, and despite the goodwill that I had in the Bureau, it looks like that senior officials like Milstein in Embassy Jerusalem and people from the Secretary's office at the State Department both combined to get me fired by the end of the week.
So explain exactly what they said when you wanted to express condolences to these families of civilians, of journalists.
Oh, that's right. All he wanted to do was express condolences for the journalists that were killed. He was fired. Ridiculous.
Israel immediately claimed responsibility for the killing of Anas and his colleagues.
Well, they immediately said we can't provide condolences because Israel has claimed, we don't know exactly what happened here, and Israel has claimed that he was a member of Hamas. I have an issue with relying on Israelis for every intelligence and comment. So we should be able to pause and evaluate things. If they had said, hey, we're going to wait 48 hours and confirm that could be one thing, but immediately deferring to the Israelis is high.
No, they were like, no, the genocidal ethno-state that is the eyes and ears of the United States in the Middle East, we're gonna go with that narrative. Sorry. Guy we hired to do this, you know, like... But maybe he was speaking out of term. Maybe recognizing humanity wasn't in his job description.
And of course, Israel never provided evidence of this, and they never claimed that the 5 other journalists were members of Hamas.
They never do.
So talk about who Milstein is, one of your key opponents, the senior advisor to Mike Huckabee, the U.S. ambassador to Israel.
Look, he's someone who's influential and close with Ambassador Huckabee. He will communicate and have a lot of influence in the building. He's well known for pushing his agenda within the building, and I think that's highly problematic because we have these very impressive and hardworking civil servants in the building who are going through a process every single day, whether it be policy memos, press statements, to put the facts out there. And even if it's obviously we have a President Trump's administration, it's his prerogative, but the facts matter so that the agenda is in line with reality. However, folks like Milstein and his allies, which are a very small group in the grand scheme of things in the building, don't care about guardrails. In fact, the guardrails is what aggravates them. So even when you say, go ahead.
The debate around calling the West Bank Judea and Samaria goes to the House Speaker, Mike Huckabee, who made this visit to an Israeli settlement in the West Bank after an unannounced trip to Israel. Johnson used his visit to declare, quote, "The mountains of Judea and Samaria are the rightful property of the Jewish people." How did you win this fight, not to say Judea and Samaria in an official State Department's press release?
It's a good question. I want to emphasize that even though I have an influential role as a press officer, every single time something goes out, it requires input from the entire building. I can't go and release a statement unilaterally. So when it comes to Judea and Samaria, we have these, just to give some background for the audience, on days that the State Department holds daily press briefings, which the current schedule has tended to be Tuesdays and Thursdays, I have these packets of press guidance. It's pages of possible reporter questions and sample responses, and then before they go to the podium to brief reporters, the press officers will take turns by bureau to brief the spokesperson. Now, I was clearing, which means basically going through the approval process, I was clearing my packet that morning. Now, what's interesting is that Embassy Jerusalem, even though they're influential and normally should be in my dock, they let David Milstein lead, but he doesn't always have either time or whatever it is to go into my docs every day. So I'd get the surprise once every, let's say, 2 to 3 weeks, he would jump in and edit my doc. So he did his classic surprise morning edits where he goes through and adds all these edits that don't have precedent necessarily. And so some are approved. I usually go to other colleagues in the building and say, hey, these edits came in late in the process. Let's go through each one. And I'll say that even though I was the one who flagged my concern about Judea and Samaria first, I was not the only one in the building that shared that concern. So
let me ask you about that. How much dissent is there within the State Department when it comes to Israel-Palestine? I mean, today's top headline is that the UN has now declared famine in Gaza.
Look, people people read the headlines. They're perfectly aware. I want to emphasize that in a general sense, the civil servants there are doing their job. They know their role. They recognize the administration they're under and the prerogative. But at the same time, people are aware that, especially in the press context, policy is one thing, and there are obviously major concerns there. But just on the press side, being empathetic, a bit more empathetic, just at least showing concern is just like this basic press advice. And so people are.
There it is, showing empathy. I was right. Can't even do that.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. I'm Amy Goodman. We end today's show in California, where community organizers demanding justice for 52-year-old Carlos Roberto Montoya, a father and grandfather from Guatemala, who was struck and killed on the freeway as he tried to escape federal ICE agents during a raid at a Home Depot in Monrovia last week. Montoya had lived in the U.S. for about 3 years. He was a day laborer who worked to support his wife, 4 daughters, and grandchildren in Guatemala. On Thursday, Democracy Now! Producer Marina Tadacena reached Montoya's eldest daughter, Ana Victoria, and his wife of 35 years, Ana Maria Vasquez, who spoke to Democracy Now! From their home in Guatemala, sitting in front of an altar with flowers, candles, and 2 photos of Carlos Roberto Montoya.
The last call I had with my dad was Wednesday at 11 at night, the day before he died, and he told me things are rough here. It is getting harder here. I just need to make a little bit more money so that I can go back to Guatemala. He was planning on coming back, but he was struggling with making enough money to make his dream come true of having his own business so that he could support us here. We want people to remember my dad in the same way we will remember him, as a loving, respectful, brave man. He died because he was afraid. He died because of these injustices, this persecution. I want him to be remembered as a brave and hard-working man. Sadly, he didn't have enough time to fulfill his dreams, and we are left with
the live meritocracy that kept him in a deadly situation. I can't watch anymore, honestly. I thought this was interesting, though. Local news, 10 Tampa Bay. Judge says Florida must stop expanding alligator Alcatraz. We saw this in the headlines.
Well, with the judge ordering alligator Alcatraz to wind down over environmental concerns, this evening those on both sides of the issue are raising new questions about what's next.
Yeah, the order says no new construction, no new detainees accepted. 10 Tampa Bay News reporter Kristen Barbarisi joins us here live. And Kristen, they say they have 60 days rather to shut this down.
That's right, but it's not a done deal. Today the state is vowing to fight, appealing that preliminary injunction. Late Thursday, a federal judge sided with environmental advocates who argued the state violated environmental law when it built alligator Alcatraz without the required environmental assessments.
We have been calling this detention center America's worst idea, and that's for a number of reasons, including threats to endangered...
Lady, chill. Oh my god. Don't you think chattel slavery was maybe America's worst idea?
Species, threats to Everglades wetlands.
The preliminary injunction orders the state to stop new construction, start moving detainees out, and ultimately shut down the facility. But the legal fight is far from over.
This is an important victory, but it is a first step. We will have to defend it.
Is this like... To her, it's like a baby's first introduction to the carceral state of the United States.
In the Court of Appeals, and but we're confident that the facts and the law are on our side.
On Friday, Governor Ron DeSantis said this ruling was expected.
This is a judge that was not going to give us a fair shake. This was preordained. Very much an activist judge that is trying to do policy from the bench.
And he added the state will not be deterred.
We're going to continue working on the deportations and patients, advancing that mission. We knew that this would be something that would likely happen, and we will respond accordingly.
Almost immediately after this ruling came down, the state filed an appeal. They can also file a motion for a stay that would stop that injunction from taking effect. Meanwhile, the governor said plans to build another detention facility just outside of Jacksonville are moving forward. In studio, Kristen Barbarisi, 10 Tampa Bay News.
A federal judge on Thursday barred the DeSantis and Trump administration
I'll be right back.
from bringing new detainees to alligator Alcatraz and demanded the state close out operations at the immigration detention facility within 60 days. What's really incredible about this, and again, it's a victory now, but it will be appealed, is this was pretty much a torture prison out in the open with the Trump administration and the Republican Party hawking merchandise.
Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup.
This is Ashley with Status Coup.
On the ground.
In Philadelphia.
Flint, Michigan. East Palestine, Ohio. Please support the leading independent news outlet on the ground.
Covering what the corporate media covers up.
Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup. Incredible breaking news for once in this Trump 2.0 hellscape. At almost 10 o'clock at night here, a federal judge has ordered the Trump Gestapo ICE prison, known as Alligator Alcatraz, to be shut down in 60 days. And as of now, no new prisoners can be shipped in. This is incredible news. I am sure the Trump administration, as well as Florida Governor DeSantis' administration, will appeal this. But as of right now, a judge has halted new prisoners being shipped there, new construction, and called for this Gestapo prison that many have called a concentration camp to be shut down. Before I give you the details, I want to be clear. There is no other outlet, mainstream or independent, that has covered and investigated and dug on Alligator Alcatraz more than Status Quo. We have been on the ground there multiple times at great resources to us, at great expense to us, and we stayed on it after we left. So please, please support us if you can so we can continue doing this important, super vital on-the-ground investigative journalism. And thank you to our paying members who helped us go there and have helped us stay on it. Let me show you the details here. This is from the Miami Herald. Credit to them as well. They've done great reporting on Alligator Alcatraz. Obviously, they're down there. Judge orders Alligator Alcatraz shut down in 60 days, says no more new detainees. A federal judge on Thursday barred the DeSantis and Trump administration from bringing new detainees to Alligator Alcatraz and demanded the state close out operations at the immigration detention facility within 60 days. I don't even call it a detention facility. It is a prison where people are being held without due process. U.S. District Judge Kathleen Williams, in her 82-page ruling, prohibited the state and federal government from bringing additional detainees to the detention center, which has drawn mass protests. She also stopped any expansion of the detention facility, including adding industrial lighting or erecting any new buildings such as tents or dormitories. Though her order does not prohibit the state from making repairs to the site, the most striking aspect of the order is her demand that the state begin removing all generators, gas, sewage, and other waste items that have transformed the airstrip into a detention center within 60 days, rendering the site uninhabitable. Williams said she expects attrition to make the stripping of the site safe. Williams' order, a temporary injunction that will hold as the case continues to be litigated, comes in a lawsuit filed by environmental groups and the Miccosukee tribe, I always mispronounce it, apologies, arguing that the state and federal governments cut important corners when erecting the site in a matter of days. That would be 8 days, to be exact. And cutting corners like, I don't know, permits, I don't know, doing an environmental impact study, which by law you have to do, particularly in the Everglades, which is home to some of the most endangered species, pristine waters, aquifers, among many, many important environmental needs, as well as the wildlife. What's really, really incredible about this, and again, it's a victory now, but it will be appealed, is this was pretty much a torture prison out in the open with the Trump administration and the Republican Party hawking merchandise, alligator hats, alligator beer koozies, literally like MAGA families on vacation pulling over to take selfies in front of the Alligator Alcatraz.
Yes, really.
As human beings, undocumented or not, most of whom did not have criminal charges or any criminal history against them.
The cruelty is mainstream.
Literally, we're being left inside tents that were flooding, which created mold. We're being deprived of medication. We're passing out and being left sprawling, unconscious on the ground in the prison for as much as a half hour. We broke that story a week or two ago. We got the audio of a prisoner recounting that story, was being left to be eaten alive by mosquitoes during the day while they sleep. A lot of these mosquitoes carry disease. We're being deprived water. We're being deprived adequate food. It was scalding heat inside. I mean, the list goes on. This was a torture prison in America. While the Trump administration cuts your Medicaid, gives massive tax breaks to corporations and wealthy people, literally is cutting food programs for the needy, is gutting the federal government, while distracting the masses with illegal immigrants, as Trump literally hawks his meme coins, as foreigners come to the White House and pay millions to have dinner with him. Open corruption. I mean, the list goes on. So this is a big victory. Reminder, we were on the ground there, more than most mainstream outlets and independent outlets. I want to show you some of that reporting if you've never seen it or you're new here. Definitely subscribe to Status Quo if you're new. We are almost at 500,000 subscribers and would love to get there. This was our reporter on the ground the first day at Alligator Alcatraz.
These are humans. There's human trafficking. There's kidnappings happening. There are people being torn from their families. There are young mothers who will not be able to raise their children. And there's people who will never be able to become an elder. And these are indigenous people with medicine, with culture, with love, with communities. And they don't deserve to be ignored.
The goal is terror. The goal is
for us to suffer the most. The heat index is like 100 plus here, so you're going to have issues of people being dehydrated, fainting, having heat stroke.
We're already seeing that in the Chrome detention centers. There needs to be some sort of respect towards the tribes that are putting tax dollars into the Florida economy. How dare they? This is not their land. This is our land. This is native land. This is Seminole, Miccosukee, and indigenous people who are working, who are living our lives here.
As always, they dump these, in this case, illegal, inhuman prisons or environmentally calamitous projects on native land, on poor black communities, on poor brown communities. And in this case, this is Seminole, Miccosukee land that they put this prison on. And the indigenous people have been leading protests out there as well, which hasn't gotten enough coverage. I also want to show you just the insane environmental, sanitary problems with this prison that has been since the start. Again, this was a reporter, Ashley Bishop, out there covering it and talking to activists early on after this horror Gestapo torture camp opened.
We were not allowed in, but some media, particularly right-wing media, I know some very right-wing pundits had actually gotten ability to tour the facility, and the videos that they were putting on Instagram depicted basically, cement floors with chain link fences. Like, it looked like a dog kennel, like a really awful dog kennel, frankly. Like the place that's like the kill shelter, right? That's what it looked like. And to think that that's where they're going to be putting people who have done nothing wrong except for try to make their lives better by moving to this country that we've promised them is a great place to live.
Here's another on the just disgusting lack of sanitation. Where are they going to put the poop? There's no plumbing. There's no running water in this torture prison. Let's play this.
We have such low amount of regulation around our environmental issues already. I'm not surprised that their plan is just to dump a bunch of shit in the Everglades. Where's their poop gonna go? I hate to ask the obvious question, but there's no septic system here.
It's, not only just the weather itself, they want to torture people with that, but just like the sewage situation that multiple people have already brought up. You can't put septic tanks in the middle of the Everglades.
People come here, they go on airboat rides, they go see the alligators, they kayak, they stand up paddleboard, they go to the beach. And you think about how delicate it is in terms of being a system. We got 1,000 people. You're gonna drive how many miles? 70, 100 miles? The logistics of this are stupid. What happens when you put people in an environment? There is poop, there is pee, there is lots of other kinds of waste. Where are we gonna go? So how many more trucks are gonna be driving down this road, right? Or are we just gonna dump it in the Everglades? I don't know. There's not been a plan. This has been put forth as political theater.
The creeks and the water that flows through Big Cypress down to
We have seen this. Famine in the Gaza Strip, a distribution of food insecurity amongst the population of 2 million, according to an IBC analysis. Each circle represents 10,000 inhabitants. This ominous feeling that there is a number of people in crisis because that extra 10% is already dead or has died. This is some random news. Fire burns for 12 hours on U.S. Navy warship off Okinawa. A fire burned aboard a U.S. Navy warship anchored off Okinawa for 12 hours, injuring 2 sailors, a statement from the Navy's 7th Fleet in Japan said. The fire aboard the USS New Orleans, an amphibious transport dock ship with a crew of more than 360 sailors and capable of carrying 800 troops, began about 4 p.m. local time on Wednesday and was extinguished early Thursday morning, according to the statement. But a statement from the Japan Coast Guard, which helped fight the fire, said firefighting efforts did not end until just after 9 a.m. local time, and that an investigation was underway to determine whether it was fully extinguished. The ship was at anchor off the White Beach Naval Facility on the east coast of the Japanese island. The facility serves as a staging area for U.S. Marines and their equipment to deploy to amphibious ships like the New Orleans, which is 684 feet long with a displacement of 24,000 tons. You're padding. I got a bunch of Guardian articles. Israeli children refused access to leisure park in southern France. Manager of a zipline facility detained for alleged religious discrimination after a group of 8 to 18-year-olds turned away. Or did he hear them saying some Zionist shit? The manager initially told some people he was refusing that group access on the grounds of personal beliefs before offering different explanations to others. A line was crossed. We are appalled. It started with graffiti, insults, and physical attacks, and now it's literally a ban on children. Adding that it reminded her of the no Jews or dogs allowed sign during the Holocaust. France's values have been violated, she said. Let's talk about the real issue of rising anti-Semitism brought on by the Zionist state itself because of its usage of Judaism as a shield, as justification for genocide and ethnic cleansing, claiming Israel is the only place that is safe for Jews after the Holocaust. The weaponization of the legacy of the Holocaust knows no bounds. But also, if this is a real instance of anti-Semitism, this is bad. I mean, of course it's bad. But let's not lose sight of the real issue here, which is the environment that Zionism has created. Poor JD just cannot catch a break. Also, Mr. Lammy, try to look comfortable and relatable holding the fishing rod. Oh, jeez. Fishing without a license could have a fine of up to 2,500 pounds. Euro? I don't know what that is. Who cares? It's Europe. Here are the initial takeaways of Ghislaine Maxwell's interview transcripts. The transcripts are more than 300 pages, but here it goes. Blanche said on record, it released transcripts from her interviews with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. Okay. Blanche said on record that their conversation wasn't, quote, promising to do anything for Maxwell, but that anything she said couldn't be used against her unless she provided false statements or there was a retrial in her case. Fuck. These are the highlights. Goes so... And it's still like, I'm not reading all that. According to Maxwell, Epstein didn't have any video or photographic evidence of any high-profile individuals committing sexual offenses. To that point, Maxwell said she didn't hear or witness any instances of Epstein blackmailing powerful people. Maxwell recruited a number of masseuses for Epstein, but, quote, never checked their age or credentials. She added that throughout her time with Epstein, she never heard any examples of, quote, sexually inappropriate contact between Epstein's guests and in-house masseuses. Despite her claims that Epstein didn't extort anyone, Maxwell does not believe that Epstein died by suicide. She chalked that up to mismanagement at the Bureau of Prisons. Mismanaged so poorly that he was murdered? In the interview, Maxwell said she does believe that Epstein, quote, did a lot of, not all, but some of what he's accused of, but she maintains that, quote, he became that man over a period of time. Maxwell said that she never saw Donald Trump receive a massage. Okay, but just because you didn't see it, just because it didn't happen, she never witnessed the president in any inappropriate setting in any way. Alright, so you're not a witness. Case closed, nothing to see here. Adding that he was a gentleman in all respects whenever she saw the press. Sure. Maxwell also didn't recall former President Bill Clinton receiving a massage while traveling with Epstein. She just doesn't remember anything. That's why she's so valuable. That's why... She's also a confirmed liar. She's lied under oath before, if I'm not mistaken. One notable point is that Maxwell denied ever recruiting masseuses from Trump's Mar-a-Lago club. I've never recruited a masseuse from Mar-a-Lago for that, as far as I remember. I can't ever recollect doing that, she told Todd Blanche. A reminder that Trump claimed his falling out with Jeffrey Epstein stemmed from the convicted sex offender's efforts to hire workers away from the Trump's Florida club. So it was for Not Spa, then. You know, when Trump said, whether it was for spa or not spa. Truly one of the dumbest things he's ever said. The most egregious instance of him butchering the English language. Maxwell did not remember whether Trump submitted a letter for Epstein's 50th birthday album as reported by the Wall Street Journal. She also couldn't remember asking Trump to contribute. So she just can't remember anything, and also Trump's a great guy. Yeah, MAGA is still not buying it. Hundreds of transcripts, unlikely to pacify those who want to know more of President's association with Epstein. They're like, cool, release the files. The Department of Justice will share additional information about what we learned at the appropriate time. When is that? When is the appropriate time turned out to be just before 3 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday, the 22nd of August, when the department published redacted transcripts of Blanche's interviews with Maxwell. Wasn't it like redacted, but you could still read it, kind of? Or am I thinking of something else? Maybe I'm thinking of the leaked Alaskan Summit memo. That was left on a copy machine, if I'm remembering correctly. This was kind of remarkable. NBC News covering the UN calling it a genocide. Comes as deaths from starvation rise across the Palestinian enclave in a spiraling crisis under Israel's military assault and aid restrictions. There's no mincing words. They're putting the blame on Israel, which I think is remarkable for NBC. Damn, my youngest child doesn't know what fruit tastes like. But fuck the BBC. We're not gonna rely on them for anything. They might as well be complicit. I just got my news tab in my algorithm, and dude, I only got 6 videos recommended. What the fuck? Oh, I did want to play Max Blumenthal and Katie Halper. Just 2 Jews speaking, you know, tactfully about the state of Israeli culture. And is this an... I have tried to stay away from Sam Harris for the last 2 years, but we'll give this a try at the end. I think I know what his opinions are about Israel. He did a whole podcast years and years ago, whole podcast episode on the topic of why don't I criticize Israel, despite being a famous critic of religious ethno-states and just being an insufferable atheist in general. It's the most jarring fucking intro ever.
From the gray zone. You have a stringer there who interviewed the mother.
قبل كان وزنه 9 اليوم أصبح فقد من وزنه ما يقارب 4 كيلو صار 6 كيلو مثل ما انتم شايفين بيعاني من سوء تغذية وهذا كله بسبب قلة الأكل والمجاعة والاحتلال اللي بيحارب فينا وفي ضعف أطفالنا طبعا هذا كله هذا بسبب كمان تسكير
Very upsetting.
It is really upsetting, yeah.
This will be shown at the future Holocaust museum.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's yeah, it was very upsetting. It's like
Yeah, I think the image of that sunken-eyed, malnourished baby sucking desperately on an empty bottle, I think that image will stay with me forever. Forever.
We showed it last week on Useful Idiots, and it's, you know,
I saw it for 2 seconds. It'll stay with me forever.
It was very hard for me to not cry on air because it's so awful, and then like to have to kind of like defend the right of this child not to be starved to death, despite the fact that, you know, they have cerebral palsy. It's just like that's where we are. Yeah, I mean, it is interesting how, you know, it's disgusting, but sometimes I'm like, well, maybe all these, I guess so many Zionists though are so much more excited about killing Palestinians than they are about saving Jewish lives, right? Because all these people who care about Jews, and that's like Israel's shtick, right? To be a safe haven. We know that Netanyahu doesn't care, and he's, as you said, and you wrote in your article, he's perfectly happy. In fact, it's his preference to have these people killed. But you would think that more like liberal Zionists would be up in arms about the effect that Israel's policy is having on the hostages. Like they don't care about Palestinians.
They are up in arms. I mean, they interrupted like one of the top Israeli reality shows. Like
right, yeah.
Liberal Zionist women. You see these protests all the time. Like they're about as hopping mad as a liberal Zionist, if you even want to call them that. They're sort of like I call them. They're more just like Ashkenazi elites from the cities, secular Zionists is what you would call them in Israel.
Right.
They don't have a messianic attitude.
Right.
And they're a problem. They're a problem for the government, but they're not a threat that Netanyahu has to face down the way he did before October 7th with the protests for judicial reform, where they actually had like military reservists refusing duty. So they're not able to turn the screws on the government.
Right, yeah. But what about Amy Schumer? Why isn't she up in arms? Does she know this? Is she too dumb to know what Netanyahu's doing? Do you think? Amy, come on the show. Let us know.
Yeah. I don't know. She has to get approval from Chuck Schumer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I just wanted to say, like, to your point, not caring about the captives or wanting them dead is logical for the leadership of Israel, but it's Zionist logic. It's not our logic. The Hannibal Directive is logical within the political parameters of Zionism, because the most important thing is to preserve the exclusivist Jewish state, not to preserve Jewish life. I mean, Jewish life is actually very expendable, and the Jewish state makes it so, particularly outside of the militarized frontiers of what is known as Israel. So those Jews give Hamas negotiating leverage. The goal is to totally destroy all resistance to the self-proclaimed Jewish state, no matter what they are. Like, even if they have surrendered in Syria, you have to destroy any iterations of resistance or any potential resistance. And that destruction breathes life into Zionism. It gives it dynamism because people are fighting for something, and the military is a major force for indoctrination and propagandizing the public. And then outside, which of course puts the population in further peril because they're perpetually at war. They can never snuff out all the threats. But then further afield in the so-called diaspora, we don't actually live in the diaspora. Like, this is where I am from. I'm not from Israel. But as it's known, what the Zionist movement would like more than anything, like the real hardcore believers in it, the ones who believe in what Israel's government is doing right now, is for some Gentile Nazi to walk up in a synagogue on Friday night and shoot a bunch of old ladies. They would love that. I mean, they would maybe not be like, yes, but they would be filled with indignation, and it would provide them with the political leverage they need to kind of push back against the public outrage about everything they're doing in Gaza. And so that's why we see, like, the Israeli Foreign Ministry account is a perfect example or perfect illustration of what I'm saying right now. They're complaining and howling right now because some people threw fake blood on the embassy in Amsterdam. Justifiably, I totally support doing that. Cheers to those who did it. It's a protest. I oppose the real blood. But just a day ago, that same account was justifying the murder of journalist Anas al-Sharif and his entire crew and the real bloodshed. So this is the dynamic where they're like, on the one hand, they're like, fuck around and find out. Yeah, you're dead, bitch. You're Hamas. And then the next day, they're, oh, this is our reality. This is our reality. We are anti-Semitism. It is Anne Frank all over again.
Right. So disgusting.
And we must censor the show Slam Frank. But, you know, they'd be on the good foot if they could get some real anti-Semitism going right now.
Right. And just to clarify, when I say it's their shtick to be a safe haven for Jews and save Jewish lives, I mean, I don't think that Israel doesn't operate that way, but a lot of people do think that's what Israel's about. I mean, it's kind of...
No, it's just the Israel exists to give the Jewish communal life a political and spiritual boner that it wouldn't have otherwise in the United States and in Europe and elsewhere. It doesn't really serve any other any other purpose to Jews. It serves purpose to imperialism for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you know, all the Jews who believe in Israel at this point, who control all of our communal institutions, they could not do with an Israel at peace, with an Israel that was not embattled. They would have nothing to do, and then they just be like, what would like Barry Weiss or Eli Lake do? Like, what would they write about or think about? Like, their lives would be impoverished. Their identity would be they'd just be this white person in America.
Right.
All those people you go up against on Piers Morgan, they'd just be white people.
Right. Yeah. No grievances. They won't be persecuted.
And not like interesting white people. Because Zionists like that, they're not really like funny Jews or smart Jews. They're just loud and obnoxious and brazen.
Yeah, someone posted in a tweet, below a tweet, I think when I went on Piers Morgan, I tweeted out a clip and someone was like, Zionists, offended by everything, ashamed of nothing.
Damn, well said. I think I will leave it there. Thanks for tuning into the show. If you want to support the stream, like the video and subscribe. And I'll see you guys on Monday. I'm going to be playing RuneScape again tonight through the weekend. We're skilling, we're chilling, we're not missing any XP. It's just how it goes. Take care, y'all. Fuck Israel. Free Palestine. Peace.